Look, I agree, we need to stop opening these videos by talking about how infinitely tired I am, but please tell life to stop kicking my ass. So this video was just about done at the end of January, and then something happened with my footage that made me had to delete the entire thing, and we had to start over from scratch. Oh. Have I mentioned that I'm very tired? Look, I don't want to make y'all wait any longer than you've already been waiting. Let's keep this one short and sweet, eh? Worst albums of 2024. Please keep 3 major things in mind for this list, though. A, I didn't honestly listen to a lot of new music this year. I just didn't have as much time. I'll go into why in another video here, but the very, very short version, my personal life is just so friggin' busy right now. B, 2024 was actually an awesome year for music. I don't know, I feel like I wouldn't have much for this list even if I had been hunting for shit. There was just good stuff all over the place. Again, stay tuned for that best of video. We're gonna have a lot more fun over there. I pinky swear promise. And C, again, just keep in mind, I don't really go out and hunt for awful records anymore. I listened to music the same way a normal human being listens to music this year, okay? If an album looked good, I gave it a bit of my very, very short amount of free time. If I heard it was trash, or it looked like trash, or I just didn't want to sit through it, I didn't bother. You'd be surprised how good that is for your mental health. But on the flip side of that though, if this list feels like it has a lot of weird picks or a lot of, well, I thought it was good, hey, homie, good for you. Seriously, I ain't trying to piddle in your cereal with this list, I mean it. I'm just saying, this is more than ever a strictly me list, and not all of these albums are necessarily even that bad. This is just the stuff I heard from last year, which again isn't much, that did not click. For one reason or another, it just wasn't my bag. But you get the idea, I trust you not to be weird about it. Let's get this one done, eh? And believe it or not, I actually do have a handful of dishonorable mentions this year. Again, please keep in mind, just because it's on this list, maybe doesn't mean it's the worst album in the world, okay? It just means, for whatever reason, eh. And our first album that's eh.
The American dream is killing me. The American dream is killing me.
Whew, boy, if there was one album I got the most requests to talk about in 2024, it was absolutely this one, which is a crying goddamn shame because I have absolutely nothing to say about this thing. It's not as bad as Father of All. I think we can all agree that's a good thing overall. But at the same time, I don't know, there was nothing about this album I particularly enjoyed either. I don't know, again, more power to you if you were feeling this, but I don't know, I listened to this thing at a listening party at a local record store in Indy when it dropped, spun it 2 or 3 more times in like January and February, and then completely forgot this thing existed. I was going over the list of albums that I actually listened to and I was like, oh yeah, Green Day totally did drop a record this year. How the hell did I forget about that? And then I tried spinning it again and I was like, oh, that's why. You know, it's entirely possible that this record just got eclipsed by all the other crazy shit that happened in 2024. I don't know, maybe it just wasn't that great? I don't know, whatever it was, I just gotta admit I wasn't feeling it. Not bad, but I can kind of take it or leave it. Moon music. What did I have to say about this one? Boring? Honestly, that's probably it. We could probably wrap this section up here. But like, again, it's better than Music of the Spheres, I guess. I don't know, listening to this one again for this video, It just reminded me that Coldplay ran out of ideas like 10 years ago. They should have broke up several album cycles back. This album isn't so much a swan song as a weary round of closing time to chase everyone out of the bar. Actually, I have to take that back. If this record did have something as interesting as closing time on it, I would have cared more than I do. Again, it's not awful, but I just do not have a single reason to care outside of like, oh, so that's it for Coldplay, huh? Yeah, y'all should probably get gone. Not the most miserable end to a career I've seen, but a grim reminder that that career should have ended a long time ago. Nothing to care about, I'm sorry.
Are my stripes 300 tracks in my...
Maybe a controversial pick. Please remember, I didn't listen to a lot of stuff this year, but this album, I don't know, it felt like a bit of a disappointment. I was actually pretty warm on the last record, Scaled and Icy, but that was mostly because that album was a big weirdo departure from their usual sound, and I really liked what they were doing with that. Too bad nobody else did.
Hey, wait, I like that record.
Quiet, you. So they came back around to something that sounded a bit more familiar to their old bag of tricks, and I'm sorry, I just wasn't feeling it. I've never really clicked with 21 Pilots outside of that one time they decided to think outside of the box. And now that they're back in the box, I just kind of don't care. Again, no hate if this was a vibe for you. I mean, I get it. People like 21 Pilots. They like what they're doing. But I just think I need to sit down and accept the fact that I'm just not into this band. It's never gonna fully click for me. Which, you know, I get it. This band shouldn't be for me. I'm almost 40 years old now, people. It would look weird if I were a 21 Pilots fan at my age, right? I mean, a guy like me shows up to the 21 Pilots concert, everyone's gonna ask me which one is my daughter. Like, I don't need to be there for that.
We were forever running to you, sometimes ask about who.
It's too goddamn long. Quit doing me. No, I'm right. Again, I didn't even really hate this. Hell, there are a handful of pretty decent songs on this, but this woman does not have a double album in her. I'm sorry. Here's my neck if you'd like a slice at it. That is too much Taylor for one sitting. I'm sorry.
Promise of the emptiness machine, the emptiness machine.
Ooh, boy. Here's where the video gets interesting. I didn't hate this record the way some folks absolutely despised this record. I just want that out there. But I am not sure why this thing exists. It's one of those weird projects where maybe the initial intentions were good, or at least they went into it with the right mindset at the start of things. But as things went on, it feels like there was actually not much real thought put into things. This just has the warning signs all over it. Like, this thing is kinda cursed. I mean, Rob Borden quitting the band after finishing recording, Brad Delson refusing to tour, the decision to hire Emily Armstrong as Chester's replacement without even doing the most basic vetting on her. Seriously, y'all, like, 2 or 3 Google searches would have caught a lot of this shit. And that's not even mentioning the constant stream of face plants and non-answers from Mike Shinoda about why on earth he actually decided to do this. I don't know, man. Why drag Linkin Park's good name through the mud for something like this? I mean, you know, outside of the obvious reasons. But, like, I don't know. My biggest complaint with this album is it just doesn't feel like a Linkin Park record. I almost feel like this album would have been better served if they just called it, like, the The Magical Mike Shinoda Midlife Crisis Machine, or what the fuck ever. You know, keep Linkin Park away from this thing. It doesn't have that Linkin Park spirit or soul to it. If there were no OG members in this lineup at all, like if this were a completely separate band, if Linkin Park had no ties to this project at all, you would still think this was a band trying to do an impression of Linkin Park, and not a particularly great one at that. Why is Linkin Park out here trying to pretend to be Linkin Park? And if so, why are they so bad at it? But even still, I didn't necessarily despise it. It does have its moments, you know? It's not a complete failure necessarily. But I can't help but feel like the band, their musical legacy, and every single one of us would probably been better off if they just left well enough alone. This doesn't rise to the occasion of a Linkin Park record. This is gonna sting for some of y'all, but I have a comparison, and I want you to brace for it, okay? I promise, I'm trying to be as nice as I can here. The closest comparison I have for this record, and this whole new version of Linkin Park in general, is that Pixies reunion from a long while back. Yeah! Do you see what I mean? Does that make sense? I liked the Pixies reunion way back in the day too, for a little while, and then shit started getting ugly. Actually, New Pixies released a new record this year, and
is coming today, is coming to save us.
yeah, let's go ahead and throw that on the list too while we're here. That was a big pile of crap. I'm just saying, Linkin Park fans, I promise I'm trying to be your friend here. Are you ready for this band to go down that dark and lonely road? Do you think you're prepared to feel that way about Linkin Park in what could be a few years if they don't really turn this project around? Are you ready for Linkin Park to be New Pixies? That's all I'm saying. I don't see any room for like growth or development here. I don't know what direction they take it. I'm not even sure what direction they were trying to take it on this album. I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong here, dude, but I'm just letting y'all know. You might want to prepare for the worst on this, in case I'm not wrong. And there you go, dishonorable mentions out of the way. See, nothing even all that terrible necessarily, but like, I don't know. You get the idea. It's But I do have 5 proper worsties this year, and we will get into them. But again, please keep in mind, I didn't seek out trash. So a lot of the stuff that probably made a lot of other people's worsties, probably not gonna be here. I probably didn't listen to it. A lot of that rage bait shit, I didn't bother with it. And again, I'm very happy that I didn't. Look at this smile on my face. But I did have a few, just a few that I did catch, and were legitimately not pretty great. So let's talk them out, shall we? Come on. I only have 5 this year, so again, we'll keep it short and sweet. Number 5.
It's a woman's world and you're lucky to be living in it.
Yeah, this sucked, but I don't even want to spend a lot of time talking about it. Again, it's only on this list because I didn't really listen to a lot of stuff this year. I don't know, y'all. I honestly thought maybe this had a small chance of being okay, if only because Katie's already released the album that's killed her mainstream relevance. It ain't gonna get worse than Witness. I don't see how it does. I just figured there might be some passable pop on this. I don't know, some generic choruses and some decent melodies that I could just turn my brain off and vibe to. I don't know, sometimes I like putting on Katy Perry and just pretty colors. Shame she's not quite done flopping around, is she? And if I'm being dead blunt honest, I don't know, the album isn't awful, at least when it's Katy Perry just being Katy Perry, i.e. dumb, fun, sugar rush pop that you don't have to think about. She just couldn't stick to the script, could she? I mean, really, this isn't a review of 143. We're here to talk about Woman's World. But what more can I say about that goddamn song that hasn't already been said? I don't need to repeat everyone else's script here, okay? You know how bad this song is. It's terrible, it's insincere, it's disgusting to think that Katy Perry would crawl back to Dr. Luke, who these days is known more for his rape scandals than any of his actual production credits. This woman threw away her entire career in the hopes that this man would save it, only for him to give her this.
Sexy, confident.
It's so bad, I have to wonder if this wasn't intentional sabotage. Woman's World is the horror story from this record, but it's also kind of the only real talking point because the rest of the album is just boring as hell. Again, I almost have nothing else to talk about on this one. There's nothing on this record that isn't a retread from the now very well-weathered Katy Perry playbook. I mean, hell, even Woman's World is just another page ripped out of that same playbook. It's the same glitter bomb, neo-lib, Tina Fey-ass generic feminism that she's always been about. But honey, it's not 2010 anymore, and this looks insanely tone deaf 15 years later. Nothing else on this record is worth even mentioning, and again, I wouldn't even have a place for it if I just didn't have such a shallow pool to draw from, you know? The worst list is for albums that I did genuinely think sucked, and yeah, this did suck, but I don't know. If there were anything else I could point to, I wouldn't even have space for it. It's not worth even talking about. Number 4.
Tears on my face, they dropping and they pour right down. Cause I know what you really out here and on right now. When I know I'll buy you anything in Star.
Okay, do you see what I'm talking about? This record was way worse than 143. Like, I'm sorry, that's it. I tap, I'm out. I am not giving this person any more chances. I'm never listening to a Lil Uzi Vert record again. I have been trying since at least 2017 to figure out what the hype is behind this person. It's been 8 years, and I am still no closer to it. That is 8 years completely wasted. I'm sorry, I'm done. It isn't that I'm missing anything. It's more that there just isn't anything there to catch. I listened to this album at least a handful of times, and I couldn't tell you a single damn thing about it. When it isn't boring, it's insipid. When it isn't insipid, it's baffling. And when Big Time Rush is the best thing about your record, I'm sorry, your record is beyond repair, and I'm not even that much of a Big Time Rush hater. Seriously, okay. I guess I kinda... You know, fuck it, I become an old head this year. I can get away with saying this. There's only one Rush out there, and you'll never be as big time as Neil Peart, you little whippersnappers. Grumble, grumble, grumble. And like, I know I'm not the guy to ask about modern trends in hip-hop, okay? But I am officially certain it's not just me being out of touch. Lil Uzi is just not very good. They're not. I'm sorry. Especially in a year where hip-hop was the biggest goddamn thing in the world. In the year where hip-hop came the fuck back. Fucking finally. To release a record that sucks this bad is just... yeah, unacceptable. And I still don't care if I'm mispronouncing the title. Atake, Atake. I'll pronounce it right when you give me a reason to give a damn, Uzi, okay? How about that? Number 3. Oh geez, here we go. Remember in an older video when I said this? Oh no, homie, you cannot do trap. Oh, you're gonna go into trap next? I dare you to try trap. And then lo and behold, I did say I didn't seek out terrible music in 2024. For the most part, I didn't. Okay, you got me though. I am lying a teensy bit. I did look up this. This is my morbid curiosity pick for the year. Yes, I did know this was gonna suck, but like, well, he went out and did the thing. He burned that punk rock bridge down with a vengeance on that last terrible album, and he did what he actually said he was gonna do and tried to break out into trap and emo rap. And like, yeah, went about as good as you'd fucking expect. Of course this was gonna suck. I knew this was gonna suck. And it's probably not for the reason you think. MGK's biggest flaw is not that he's annoying or even that he's untalented. None of that helps. But no, none of those are his worst trait. The worst thing about this dude is that since day one, he's always been a big, fat, fucking transparent, absolute and total poser. I mean, the emo shit was always a paper-thin facade, even when he was trying to make, okay, biggest air quotes in the whole world here, actual emo. But in emo rap, where the emotion and sincerity needs to ring even more true, like, man, this just doesn't even slightly pass the sniff test. And that's coming from me. Do I look like I know a goddamn thing about emo rap or trap? I'm wearing a tragically hip shirt. But even I was able to sniff this out because me, you, and your 90-year-old grandma knows that this prick isn't a sad boy. And an emo rap album that doesn't even try to have any real emotional attachment to it, just, it's in the fucking name, dude. Fuck off. Attach as many mid-tier B-level rappers as you want to this thing. Trippie Redd is mid, don't at me. But nobody is gonna save this thing as long as you're attached to it, MGK. And like, yeah, it's about as bad as you'd expect. Again, this was my morbid curiosity pick. I'm surprised it's only number 3. And again, it's that thing that's gonna chase MGK around no matter what he does. He's just so grotesquely insincere. MGK isn't emo. He's a spoiled rich brat selling unmisunderstood merchandise to other spoiled rich brats. This is brat music for other brats. And it's not even the best brat music we heard all year, like not by a long shot. How dare you disgrace the name of brats this year, MGK? I'm just saying, this album was the audio equivalent of a knockoff Juice WRLD t-shirt being sold out of a shady kiosk in a dead mall. But thankfully, at least it feels like the rap crowd was way more in touch with Kelly's fucking grift than the rock folks were. They rejected this right out, and good for you. You shouldn't have to put up with this crap. Like, we had to give him 2 albums before we kicked him out of our scene. Unfortunately, I don't think the ride is quite yet over, folks, because as a lot of you probably already know, MGK's biggest hit this year actually came from a fluke country feature. Which means he's probably gonna try to shift genres again, and no, there is no level of morbid curiosity. You couldn't pay me to listen to the MGK country record. Jesus Christ. I think the Bible mentions that as one of the signs of the apocalypse. Number 2.
Already know by just one look at you, I'm gonna find out before the night's out.
Y'all, look, for all the hate that Katy Perry got last year, she did not faceplant the hardest in pop this year. Did y'all even listen to this fucking thing? I mean, to Katy Perry's credit, her album was just like unpleasant for a little while, and then it just got extremely boring. This thing is just
All the good girls There's a playground that I know where we all could play.
Jesus Christ, we millennials are having a really ugly transition into middle age, aren't we? Yep. I mean, granted, Timberlake was always an interesting wordsmith, but the lyrics on this thing are so bad, I honestly had to look up whether or not he got divorced this year. Like, seriously, middle-aged loser fucking men are going to be the end of this entire fucking world, aren't they? Again, in a year where pop also had an explosive as hell fucking year, it's so to listen to something like this and to have to try to explain to like the younger generations that this was the guy who brought sexy back.
Soon as all your clothes hit the floor, pray this hotel room is insured.
This guy. I'm just saying, Katy Perry got roasted for her album, and that's not entirely unjustified, but I didn't hear nearly as much squabble about this thing, and this thing was way worse. But I feel like the main reason we didn't hear as much about this is more damning. Nobody gives a shit about Justin Timberlake anymore. Well, in a weird ass backwards kind of way, Katy did have a better year than Justin. At least people cared about Katy Perry enough to, like, reprimand her. It sucks, but it is attention. People at least cared about the stuff she was doing. Justin Timberlake could have shown whole on the album cover, and no one would have still given a shit about this thing. Y'all, Justin is done. That's it. Time it. Call it. This is some of the most embarrassing shit I heard all year, and no one gave a shit about it. What does that say about your career, dude? Who cares? Like, I think that's when you need to hang it up in pop. Really? That just says it all, right? Katy may be able to eke things out for another album or two, but Justin is donezo. He needs to hang it up, because after this mess, no one will care about him ever again. And to be frank, you're probably right not to. I mean, that's the thing about pop, isn't it? The worst thing you can say about a pop star, believe it or not, isn't shame on you. It's nothing to see here. Whew, man, even when I haven't listened to a lot of trash, these worst lists are still a bit of a bastard to get through, huh? I don't know. The thing is, ever since I stopped trying to seek out really garbage music, it's kind of put an interesting spin on the worst list. Because again, there's not a lot of rar music critic man stuff on here. But in doing that, the stuff that does fall onto my radar, God, it just feels so much worse. Especially in a year like 2024, where music was so crazy good. I don't know, the stuff that did suck, man, it really stuck out, didn't it? But what that also means is the stuff that does end up here tends to not be the stuff that's like goofy or gross or dumb. It tends to be the stuff that's disappointing. That almost feels worse, doesn't it? Like, I'd say almost every record that I've laid out so far had something on it that disappointed me. And that's the thing about my worst pick this year. It's gonna sound unconventional. It's gonna be a weird pick. I promise you nobody else has picked this as their worst of the year. But man, this was the album that disappointed me the most, okay? I just want you to remember that. This is a me pick. I understand if maybe you don't feel the same way. I understand if you didn't even listen to this record or even know it came out. Because man, this band has turned into such a disappointment. This band, more than any other artist I've featured so far, abso-fucking-lutely should have known better than this. And I'm also putting them on here because God damn it. God damn it, damn it. It happened again. It happened again. An artist who previously made Album of the Year
Hell don't have no future. Hell don't have no past. Hell don't have no worries.
has now released another record that's worst of the year. I can't believe it happened twice. And with Slater Kinney, no less. But what the hell even is this thing? Were there worse albums that came out in 2024? I'm sure there probably were, but to me, there is nothing more disappointing than what Slater Kinney did on this record. But man, Slater Kinney just isn't even the same band anymore, are they? It's my worst album of 2024 because this was the biggest disappointment to me. And like, the single biggest drop off in quality. Again, what happened on this thing? This thing sounds like absolute shit. Like, just in general, the mixing and mastering on this thing is downright awful. It's all fuzz with no color or clarity or cohesiveness to the sound. And yes, SK can be a very fuzzy band when they want to be, but folks, this isn't The Woods. This is a melancholic, stifled, and very depressing album about death and grief. The fact that everything on this sounds like it's being played through an old-time radio filter, see? Helps absolutely nothing. The album just sounds like trash. It hurts my ears to listen to it. This is the assiest sounding record I heard all year, and I heard that damn Justin Timberlake record. It straight up sounds like the producer on this thing just pissed on the mixing desk and left. This is the kind of record that makes me think Slater Kinney owe him money. If I were making an album and a producer gave me this as a final product, I'd see him in court for damages. But Slater Kinney, they didn't even seem to notice how bad this album sounded. They just put it out there regardless. Did you gals give this a listen? Both of their guitars are just way too front forward in the mix, and the clashing styles of distortion just drowns out everything they're trying to do. And you know, Slater Kinney has always been a tricky band to mix for. I'll give you credit there. I mean, they don't have a bass player, so you have to find interesting ways to work around that. You know, get one of them to drop tune, or work with a producer who can flesh out the low end in creative ways, or hell, in the past, at the very least, you could always count on Janet Weiss's bombastic drum work to fill in the loose ends. Like, there are ways to make a band without a bassist sound good, but nobody took any steps on this album to work around the weird dynamic these gals have. Corin and Carrie sound like they're actively trying to drown each other out, and there's nothing going on here on the backbeat. I mean, Janet's been long gone from the band at this point, and believe me, she's still sorely missed. It's just not the same band without that trademark Weiss groove. And Angie Boylan, their touring / session drummer, Janet's replacement in all but name, I'm sorry, she just doesn't do much, and she certainly doesn't do enough to save this record, but I don't even necessarily want to rag on her too much. And given how the other two supposedly treated Janet, and given what Corin and Carrie's writing process has devolved into in recent years, I imagine being in the middle of that Tucker Brownstein sandwich is zero fucking fun. She probably just got yelled at, play the parts they told her to play, and just cashed her check and went home. Hey, that's the life of a session musician. I get it, honey, get your bag. But whoever is writing her drum parts is giving her nothing to work with, and believe me, it shows. And as much as I rag on the terrible production, I'm not even sure I can necessarily blame their producer for this either. It was done by John Congleton. If that name sounds familiar, he's done some stuff here and there, Baroness, Cloud Nothings. He actually did the latest Mannequin Pussy record from this year, and that one was pretty good. It at least sounded like he knew how a mixing desk worked, you know what I mean? Like, this guy is not an incompetent producer, at least from the stuff I've heard him do, but A, Mixing for Slater-Kinney isn't an easy job even at the best of times, and B, just everything else about this record, hell, everything Slater-Kinney has done since basically The Center Won't Hold, if I can be frank, just screams disharmony to me. Honestly, Congleton probably had a pretty thankless job on this record as well, given the glimpses we've seen into Corin and Carey's current writing process since the reunion. God, it sounds like they're just an absolute nightmare to work with anymore. I mean, look, you don't make a record that sounds this bad and put it in the world with your name on it unless your boss screamed at you loud enough to make it happen. And that's what this album feels like to me. But they made it anyway, and it just sounds like the entire process was a screaming, miserable, ugly affair. Not entirely unjustified necessarily. The passing of Brownstein's mother during the recording process was absolutely a tragedy, and to be honest, some of the passable moments on this record are the ones where they're being sincere about the grief. I don't want to diminish that aspect of things, okay? But like anything that isn't that just screams, I don't want to be here. And like, gals, I hate to be the one to tell you this, but you don't have to be if you don't want to this bad. Again, this is why Linkin Park's reunion doesn't quite faze me as much, because while it's far from perfect, I genuinely don't think it's impossible for them to spin that into something more creative. If they're smart, at least, there's a little bit of hope for that project to continue. But I'm just saying, if they can't figure it out, then they'll end up like Slater-Kinney on this record, and they're gonna sound absolutely awful. And believe me, that feeling when you hear a band you love put out a record this bad, man, it's gonna hurt. Like, gals, if it's this much misery, please just quit. If it's really such an absolute agony to do it anymore, if you're driving everyone else around you crazy just trying to make things happen, if you're just straight up making music this bad, and if it's no goddamn fun anymore, please quit. Corin, Carey, I'm not going to give you any more rope. I don't trust you with what you're gonna do with it. But yeah, there you go. That's my worsties. I know it's a pretty weird list this year, but I don't know, folks, I'm happier to not have to listen to a lot of like, stuff like this, and like, really, you couldn't fucking pay me. But thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for the besties. Trust me, we'll have a lot more fun on that video. I'll do my best not to have it take 6 months to, get finished. No promises, but we'll do what we can, okay? Thanks again, y'all. I'm Crash Thompson, and I'll see ya when I see ya.
Special thanks to our $5 and above patrons, including The Pighead, Nick Barros Johnson, Christian Toder, Dylan Rare Hunter, Yoshi Taichi, David Perez, Artemi Musha, Hannah Moran, Gennady is here, Ness217, Sean Lanigan, Rowan Cookie, Mars Hunter, Alex Sobalu, Warped Kia, Lainey Wilson, Chris Doman, Sarah Aubin, Michael K., Lilith Estelle, Rocked, Akshay W., Mark Grondin, and Dominic Noble.